Let's look at how a muscle can use temporal summation to increase the tension or the force that's exerted by that muscle. Remember, we get an electric signal on the membrane of the muscle cell. That electric signal can be just an electric signal that we artificially applied on the muscle. In the body, it's usually as a result of acetylcholine binding to receptors on the motor end plate. Regardless, after the electric signal, there's a delay or latent period. This is the time for the signal to travel along the membrane of the muscle cell, down a T-tubule, and cause calcium to be released. Once calcium is released, it binds to troponin, the binding sites on myosin open, and the myosin reaches out, grabs the actin, and starts pulling on it, making the tension get higher and higher. This will continue. As long as calcium is present, the myosin pulls the actin closer and closer to the M line. So normally the muscle contracts and then relaxes as calcium is brought back in. Imagine though what would happen if we added a second stimulus before the muscle had time to completely relax. Myosin reaches out and then the second stimulus comes before there's a chance to relax. So the myosin is already pulling. In this case, we kind of get a contraction on top of the contraction. There's already some tension there. So when the myosin continues to pull, the tension increases even further. Imagine this keeps happening. We're kind of out of room in our sarcomere, but imagine that this does keep happening again and again and again. We increase the tension by way of summation. Eventually, though, the muscle gets fully contracted. It's gone as far as it can in pulling those thin filaments to the M line. At that point, we are at maximum tension and incomplete tetanus. The muscle will rapidly contract, relax, because the signals are coming so frequently that it stays at that maximum tension until either the signals stop or it fatigues. Imagine that the signals start to come faster yet. At this point, rather than having any time to relax, we will get a contraction on top of a contraction on top of a contraction with no relaxation in between. That is what puts the muscle into complete tetanus. Contraction on top of contraction with no relaxation at all in between. The last variation that we see is Treppe, or the staircase effect. Imagine that the muscle contracts and then relaxes. But then, just as it relaxes, before there's time to bring calcium back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum and pump it out of the cell, it gets a second signal. At this case, some of the binding sites are already going to be open, so when myosin reaches out and grabs, there will be more open binding sites and the tension will slightly increase. If we keep doing this, we'll get slight increases in tension going up sort of like stair steps. So the Treppe is sometimes called the staircase effect. A small increase in tension because the calcium has already been released. This is part of the reason it's beneficial to warm up before you do intense exercise. That calcium will open some of the binding sites and individual muscle fibers won't have to be as strained as they pull. The muscle can contract with more force without injury.